Let me just stop you there. Mr. Ringelberg wants to comment on the charge to the Independent Science Board. Let me just take up that and have you be here to see if there's any response needed. Mr. Ringelberg.
Sure, thank you. Looks like the mic is on. Council, Dr. Norgard, two comments. First comment was there is no entity looking at the landscape level, which you clearly identified, and these projects, if they're to work, will likely work at the landscape level, and their effects, their influence, the positive things that we're looking for will occur at the landscape level. Yeah. It's my hope that the ISB is actually the group that does that synthesis, that we can't rely on the land trust. They frankly don't have the capacity or the funding to do that the ISB and the science program look specifically at that over the long term to track that trajectory, to ensure that these piecemeal projects, sort of by the nature of the funding and the demand for the mitigation, happen on a site-specific basis, but we have to look at the effects on the regional basis, particularly since a lot of the things that will be changing, zebra mussels, for example, water quality, the nature of the constituents, are regional, not site-specific issues. And so my hope would be that the ISB would be the entity that's looking at that. And that was my first comment. My second comment goes to the charge, and I thought that the charge fundamentally meets, I think, from my perspective, a lot of the things that I would expect the ISB to be reviewing. But I feel that with two minor modifications, the charge could actually be much stronger. And those two modifications would be, one, looking at the BDCP, EIR, EIS in context of the co-equal goals. That's never explicit here. And science is really based on asking good, strong questions. And if they're not given the good, strong question to start with, how is the BDCP, EIR, EIS consistent with the co-equal goals? Where could it be strengthened to meet the co-equal goals? I think that's a stronger starting point. The other minor modification would be the statutory questions at the bottom, number one, don't really get to Section 2820, the Fish and Game Code. They parse out individual elements of the Fish and Game Code. And the BDCP's intent under the Habitat Conservation Planning Act is to meet the full act. And I think this back page articulates the act, but the charge for the Independent Science Board is only a couple pieces of that act. And it would, I think, be useful to have the ISB look at whether or not the BDCP, EIR, EIS actually meets the act itself, which is what the BDCP is supposed to fit
Well, we've had a number of people request that various parts of the council or the Independent Science Board study a bunch of things. And one of the notions that we've kind of deferred to Mr. Stevens and our legal team, and that is when a request comes in saying, well, you have to study this or you should study this on BDCP, the staff's going to evaluate that based on the question of whether it falls within the scope of our statutory authority. And if it does not, there may be a reason to do it, but it's not a compulsion, I suppose. And let us just take your comment. I note, by the way, that our draft charge has a copy of the Fish and Game Code section attached to the second page, so it's not as if we're unaware of it, and we're unaware of it. Mr. Stevens, if you would note that question, please.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.